Introduction to Ancient Greece. Overview of ancient Greece and its significance in world history. Ancient Greece stands as one of the most influential and formative civilizations in the history of humanity. Flourishing from the 8th century BCE until the conquest by Rome in the 2nd century BCE, Greece's cultural, intellectual, and political achievements have had an enduring impact on Western civilization. It was in Greece that democracy, philosophy, and the foundations of Western thought were born. Ancient Greece's contributions to art, literature, theater, and science have not only shaped modern intellectual life but have also influenced cultures across the world. In the ancient world, Greece was a civilization made up of numerous city-states, each with its own form of government, economy, and way of life. Despite their differences, these city-states shared a common language, cultural practices, and religious beliefs, which led to a unified Greek identity. This sense of unity, while not always politically cohesive, laid the foundation for many of the ideas and principles that continue to resonate in the modern era. Through its art, architecture, philosophy, and politics, ancient Greece has left an indelible mark on history. The notion of democracy, which traces its roots to Athens, has become a fundamental principle in modern political systems. The works of Greek philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle laid the groundwork for the fields of logic, ethics, and metaphysics, areas of study that remain central to contemporary academic thought. Geographic and historical context, location, time period, and key historical events. Ancient Greece was located on the southeastern part of the Balkan Peninsula, with the Mediterranean Sea to the south, the Aegean Sea to the east, and the Ionian Sea to the west. Greece's landscape was dominated by rugged mountains, which helped foster the development of independent city-states, or polis, rather than a unified kingdom. This geographic feature encouraged competition among city-states, but also facilitated trade and cultural exchange with neighboring regions, including Egypt, Persia, and later, the Roman Empire. The time period of ancient Greece spans over 1,000 years, from around the 8th century BCE to the 2nd century BCE. The period is traditionally divided into the following key phases. The Archaic period, c. 800 to 500 BCE. This era marked the formation of the Greek city-states, the establishment of colonies, and the development of the Greek alphabet. The Archaic period saw the creation of many of the foundational elements of Greek culture, including early Greek poetry, the beginnings of philosophy, and the establishment of the Olympic Games in 776 BCE. The Classical period, c. 500 to 323 BCE, often regarded as the peak of Greek civilization. This period saw the rise of Athens and the flourishing of democracy under Pericles. It was also the time of the great philosophers, historians, and playwrights. The Persian Wars, c. 490 to 479 BCE, and the Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BCE, defined much of the political and military history of the time. The Classical period ended with the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BCE, who conquered much of the known world and spread Greek culture throughout the eastern Mediterranean and beyond. The Hellenistic period, 323 to 31 BCE, following Alexander's death, Greece became part of the vast empire he had built, which fragmented into various Hellenistic kingdoms. During this period, Greek culture and influence spread throughout the Mediterranean and into Asia, blending with local cultures and giving rise to new ideas in art, science, and politics. Roman Greece, 2nd century BCE onwards. After the defeat of the Greek city-states by Rome, Greece became a part of the Roman Empire. Despite this political subjugation, Greek culture continued to thrive, and many aspects of Greek philosophy, art, and literature were absorbed into Roman society. Key historical events that shaped the course of ancient Greece include the Persian Wars, 490 to 479 BCE, which united the Greek city-states against a common enemy and established Greece as a powerful force in the Mediterranean, the Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BCE. A devastating conflict between Athens and Sparta that ultimately weakened the Greek city-states, and the conquests of Alexander the Great, whose empire spread Greek culture across 3 continents, forever changing the course of history. Key cultural and intellectual achievements that have influenced Western civilization. Ancient Greece's legacy is perhaps best understood through its profound contributions to Western culture. Among the most significant achievements were in the fields of philosophy, democracy, art, literature, and science. Philosophy. Ancient Greece is the birthplace of Western philosophy. Figures such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle not only revolutionized human thought but also established many of the philosophical questions and methods still central to academic discourse today. Socrates' method of questioning and debate, Plato's theories of forms, and Aristotle's work in logic and ethics formed the basis for much of Western philosophy. These philosophers sought to understand the nature of reality, ethics, knowledge, and the role of humans in the universe, topics that continue to shape philosophical inquiry. Democracy. Perhaps Greece's most enduring gift to modern society is the idea of democracy. The city-state of Athens, under the leadership of figures like Pericles, is credited with developing the first known form of democracy. While Athenian democracy was limited in scope, excluding women, slaves, and non-citizens, it laid the foundation for the democratic systems of government that emerged in the modern world. The concepts of citizenship, equality before the law, and public participation in governance have shaped contemporary political institutions. Art and architecture. Greek art and architecture set standards that would influence Western art for millennia. The Greeks refined the human form in sculpture, and their works, such as the sculptures of Phidias and Praxiteles, are renowned for their realistic portrayal of human anatomy. Greek architecture, epitomized by the Parthenon on the Acropolis of Athens, developed distinctive styles such as the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian orders. These architectural principles would later be adopted and adapted by Roman and Renaissance architects, creating a lasting influence on Western buildings and monuments. Literature. Greek literature provided the foundation for much of Western literary tradition. The epic poems of Homer, the Iliad, and the Odyssey not only shaped the Greek worldview but also influenced the development of narrative and epic poetry throughout the Western canon. Greek playwrights like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides developed the genres of tragedy and comedy, which have influenced dramatic arts to this day. Herodotus, the father of history, and Thucydides, the historian of the Peloponnesian War, established the methods of historical inquiry still in use by historians today. Science and mathematics. Ancient Greek thinkers made significant advancements in the fields of mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Pythagoras and Euclid contributed to the development of geometry, while Archimedes laid the foundations for principles of physics and engineering. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, introduced the idea of rational thought in medicine, laying the groundwork for modern medical practice. The legacy of ancient Greece in modern times. The influence of ancient Greece is far-reaching and still felt in many aspects of modern life. The foundations of Western philosophy, the practice of democratic government, and the study of classical art and literature continue to shape the Western intellectual tradition. In politics, the ideals of Athenian democracy, though imperfect by modern standards, have been integral to the formation of democratic governments across the world, particularly in the development of representative democracies and the notion of citizenship. Modern legal systems are also influenced by Greek ideas about the rule of law and justice, which were central to Greek political thought. In education, the Greek emphasis on rhetoric, debate, and the pursuit of knowledge laid the foundations for Western systems of higher education. The study of the classics, the Greek language, literature, philosophy, and history remains a key element of liberal arts education in universities around the world. In art and architecture, the classical ideals of symmetry, balance, and proportion continue to influence Western art and design. Renaissance artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci were heavily inspired by Greek sculptures and the study of Greek ideals, and this legacy can be seen in Western art up to the present day. Moreover, the intellectual achievements of ancient Greece, particularly in mathematics and science, continue to be foundational for fields such as engineering, physics, and medicine. The Greeks' approach to scientific reasoning and experimentation paved the way for later developments during the Renaissance and beyond. The legacy of ancient Greece is far from limited to the academic or political spheres. It resonates deeply in modern culture, philosophy, and daily life, proving that the influence of ancient Greece is timeless and enduring. Geography and political organization in ancient Greece. Geography of ancient Greece and its influence on culture and politics. Ancient Greece's geography played a crucial role in shaping its culture, politics, and social organization. Greece is located on the southern tip of the Balkan Peninsula, surrounded by the Aegean, Ionian, and Mediterranean seas. The rugged terrain of Greece, with its mountains, valleys, and scattered islands, heavily influenced its political and social development. The landscape led to the creation of small, independent political units rather than a unified nation-state. Greece's mountainous terrain made communication and transportation difficult. This geographical isolation led to the development of separate city-states, or polis, plural for polis, each with its own government, laws, and customs. These independent city-states were often fiercely competitive and often in conflict, yet they shared a common language, culture, and religious practices. The natural harbors along the coast promoted maritime trade, making seafaring and trade essential to Greek economic life. This openness to trade and cultural exchange with other civilizations in the Mediterranean, such as Egypt and Phoenicia, contributed to Greece's rapid cultural and intellectual development. Furthermore, the abundance of fertile land around the Greek cities allowed for agricultural productivity, though the country was often forced to seek additional resources through trade or colonization. The need for land and access to resources played a major role in shaping Greek colonization efforts, leading to the establishment of Greek colonies across the Mediterranean and Black Seas. The spread of Greek culture throughout these regions contributed significantly to the broader Hellenistic world. The Greek city-states, polis, and their role in governance. The polis was the fundamental political unit in ancient Greece. Each polis was an independent city-state, and its power was often confined to a small geographical area. While the size and population of these city-states varied, they were typically centered around an urban center with surrounding agricultural land that supported the city. The most famous city-states include Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and Thebes. A defining characteristic of the polis was the agora, or central marketplace, where citizens gathered to discuss politics, conduct business, and exchange ideas. The political organization of a polis depended largely on its local governance, which varied from city to city. The polis was also a center of social, economic, and cultural life. Each city-state had its own distinctive identity and way of life, shaped by its geography and local traditions. The citizens of a polis participated in civic life, which was deeply embedded in the culture. Religious and civic festivals, such as the Olympic Games, were held to honor the gods and foster unity among the Greek city-states. Though city-states were independent and often in conflict, the Greeks shared a common language, mythology, and religion, which served as a unifying force across the region. Political structures: democracy in Athens, oligarchy in Sparta, monarchy in Macedonia. While all Greek city-states were organized around the concept of the polis, their political structures varied significantly. These variations were shaped by local customs, military needs, and historical events. Democracy in Athens. Athens is often regarded as the birthplace of democracy. In the 5th century BCE, under the leadership of figures like Cleisthenes, Pericles, and Solon, Athens developed a direct form of democracy where all male citizens had the right to participate in political decision-making. The assembly, ecclesia, was the central institution of Athenian democracy, where citizens could propose and debate laws and policies. The Council of 500 oversaw the implementation of laws, and certain government officials were chosen by lot, which was seen as a way to prevent corruption and ensure fairness. Athenian democracy was, however, limited. Only male citizens, approximately 20% of the population, were allowed to participate. Women, slaves, and foreigners had no political rights. Despite these limitations, Athenian democracy was a groundbreaking experiment in direct political participation, laying the groundwork for modern democratic principles such as citizenship, equality before the law, and participation in governance. Oligarchy in Sparta. In contrast to Athens, Sparta was known for its militaristic society and oligarchic political system. Sparta was ruled by a small group of elites who were committed to maintaining the military strength of the city-state. The Spartan government was a dual monarchy, meaning that two kings, each from a different royal family, ruled together. The king's power was primarily military, with each king commanding one of Sparta's two armies during wartime. Sparta also had a council of elders, Gerousia, which included the two kings and 28 other men over the age of 60 who helped make important political decisions. The assembly, appella, of male citizens aged 30 and above, had a limited role in governance, primarily approving decisions made by the Gerousia. Although there was a degree of citizen participation, Sparta's political system was much more oligarchic, with power concentrated in the hands of a few elite families. Sparta's political system was deeply tied to its military culture. The Spartan emphasis on discipline, training, and warfare was aimed at maintaining the city-state's dominance in the Peloponnesian region. The Spartan political structure allowed it to focus on military supremacy, and this contributed to its long-standing rivalry with Athens. Monarchy in Macedonia. Unlike the city-states of Greece, Macedonia, a kingdom to the north of Greece, had a monarchical system. The Macedonian monarchy rose to prominence under King Philip II in the 4th century BCE. Philip's military reforms, which included the use of the phalanx formation and professional soldiers, transformed Macedonia into a formidable power. Following Philip's assassination, his son Alexander the Great inherited the throne and expanded the Macedonian Empire into one of the largest in history, stretching from Greece all the way to India. Although Macedonian monarchy was not a democracy like Athens or an oligarchy like Sparta, it played a key role in Greek history, especially during the Hellenistic period, when Greek culture spread throughout the conquered territories, blending with local cultures. The rise and fall of city-states and their alliances. The city-states of ancient Greece were often in competition, but they also formed alliances for mutual protection and economic benefit. Some of the most important alliances in Greek history were the Delian League and the Peloponnesian League. The Delian League was a military alliance led by Athens, formed after the Persian Wars in the 5th century BCE. The primary goal of the League was to protect Greek city-states from further Persian invasions. The alliance was initially a voluntary coalition, but Athens gradually turned it into an empire. The League's treasury was housed on the island of Delos, and Athens used its control over the League to further its own political and military interests. Athens' growing power, especially during the leadership of Pericles, created tensions with other Greek states, particularly Sparta. The Peloponnesian League was an alliance led by Sparta that opposed the growing influence of Athens. The Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BCE, was fought between the two leagues, with Athens and Sparta as the primary adversaries. The war was devastating for Greece as a whole, and it resulted in the eventual weakening of the Greek city-states. Sparta emerged victorious, but the war left Greece politically fragmented and vulnerable to external threats, such as the rise of Macedonia under King Philip II. As the influence of Athens waned after the Peloponnesian War, Sparta's dominance was short-lived. In the 4th century BCE, the city-state of Thebes briefly challenged Sparta's hegemony, but it was ultimately Macedonia that would rise to dominate Greece under the leadership of Philip II and his son Alexander the Great. The rise of Macedonia marked the end of the era of independent Greek city-states and the beginning of the Hellenistic period, during which Greek culture spread throughout the Eastern Mediterranean and beyond. The constant competition and shifting alliances between the city-states reflect the fragmented nature of Greek political life. Despite their shared culture, geography, and religion, the Greek city-states were rarely united. It was only in times of external threats, such as during the Persian Wars, that they came together to defend their shared interests. Religion and mythology in ancient Greece. The pantheon of Greek gods and goddesses. Greek mythology is one of the richest and most influential mythological systems in history. At its core is the pantheon of gods and goddesses, each of whom govern various aspects of the natural world, human existence, and the cosmos. The Greek gods were not just symbols of abstract concepts, but were portrayed with human-like emotions, relationships, and personalities. This humanization of divine beings made the gods relatable to the ancient Greeks, allowing them to invoke divine favor or seek explanations for the mysteries of life through mythology and religion. The Olympian gods were considered the most powerful and resided on Mount Olympus, the highest peak in Greece. These gods were led by Zeus, the god of the sky and thunder, who was seen as the ruler of both gods and humans. Zeus' authority was supreme, and he played a crucial role in maintaining order in both the heavens and the mortal world. His siblings and children, who were also Olympians, represented a diverse range of domains. Hera, Zeus' wife and sister, was the goddess of marriage and family. Poseidon, Zeus' brother, was the god of the sea, earthquakes, and horses. Demeter, Zeus' sister, was the goddess of agriculture and the harvest. Athena, Zeus' daughter, was the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and warfare. Apollo, Zeus' son by the Titan Leto, was the god of the sun, music, prophecy, and healing. Artemis, Apollo's twin sister, was the goddess of the hunt, the moon, and childbirth. Ares, another son of Zeus and Hera, was the god of war. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was said to have emerged from the sea foam, according to myth. Hermes, the messenger god, was the god of commerce, travelers, and thieves. Hephaestus, the god of fire, metalworking, and craftsmanship, was the son of Zeus and Hera. Dionysus, the god of wine, theater, and ecstasy, was the youngest Olympian and the son of Zeus and the mortal Semele. In addition to these primary Olympian gods, the Greek pantheon also included various Titan gods, who predated the Olympians. Cronus, the ruler of the Titans, was overthrown by his son Zeus, marking the transition of power from the Titans to the Olympians. The Greek gods were not aloof, but interacted with humans regularly. Myths about these gods' relationships with mortals often explained natural phenomena, human behavior, and the origins of the world. The gods' capricious and often vengeful natures made them seem unpredictable, which is why the Greeks devised elaborate rituals to appease them and ensure their favor. Major myths and their influence on culture and art. Greek mythology has produced some of the most enduring and influential myths, which have shaped Greek culture, art, and literature. These stories often dealt with themes of heroism, love, betrayal, fate, and the relationships between gods and humans. The Iliad, one of the most significant works in Greek literature, the Iliad by Homer, tells the story of the Trojan War, focusing on the Greek hero Achilles. The epic poem explores themes of rage, honor, mortality, and divine intervention. The gods frequently intervene in the events of the war, influencing the fate of mortal heroes. Achilles' wrath, as well as his eventual reconciliation with the death of his beloved friend Patroclus, is central to the story. The Iliad became a cultural touchstone for the Greeks, reflecting their ideals of courage, loyalty, and the consequences of pride. The Odyssey, the sequel to the Iliad, the Odyssey tells the story of Odysseus and his long journey home after the Trojan War. His encounters with mythical creatures, gods, and goddesses, such as Circe, Polyphemus the Cyclops, and Poseidon, are central to the narrative. The Odyssey explores themes of adventure, perseverance, and the longing for home. It was an important part of the Greek educational system, instilling values of cleverness, endurance, and wisdom. The myth of Persephone and Demeter. The myth of Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest, offers an explanation for the seasons. When Persephone is abducted by Hades, the god of the underworld, Demeter mourns, causing the earth to become barren. When Persephone returns each year, Demeter rejoices, bringing fertility back to the earth. This myth influenced agricultural practices and religious festivals, especially those dedicated to Demeter. Heracles, one of the most popular Greek heroes. Heracles was the son of Zeus and the mortal Alcmene. Known for his great strength and bravery, he is famous for completing the 12 labors, which included slaying the Nemean lion and capturing the Erymanthian boar. Heracles' story became a symbol of overcoming insurmountable odds and achieving immortality through heroic deeds. His story inspired numerous artistic representations, from sculptures to theater. The story of Orpheus and Eurydice, the tragic love story of Orpheus, the greatest of Greek musicians, and his wife Eurydice has influenced Western art, literature, and music. When Eurydice dies and is taken to the underworld, Orpheus attempts to bring her back with his music. His failure to resist looking back at her before reaching the world of the living results in her permanent loss. This myth has been retold in numerous forms, from operas to paintings, and continues to resonate with themes of love, loss, and the power of art. These myths and others were a central part of Greek culture and served as a foundation for much of their artistic, literary, and philosophical traditions. They provided models of human behavior, moral lessons, and ways to understand the mysteries of life and the world. Religious practices and festivals. Religion in ancient Greece was deeply integrated into the fabric of daily life. Rituals, sacrifices, and festivals were common, and participation in religious practices was seen as a civic duty. Public festivals often included athletic competitions, musical performances, and dramatic plays. These events were held in honor of specific gods and were essential for ensuring the favor of the divine. The Olympic Games, the most famous religious festival in ancient Greece, was the Olympic Games, held every 4 years in honor of Zeus at Olympia. The Games began in 776 BCE and included athletic events such as foot races, wrestling, and chariot races. Athletes from various Greek city-states competed in the Games, which were a demonstration of physical prowess and honor. Victors were crowned with olive wreaths, and the Games were seen as an opportunity for Greeks to display their skills, but also to unite in worship of their gods. The Panathenaic Games, held annually in Athens, the Panathenaic Games were one of the most important festivals in the city. They celebrated the birthday of the goddess Athena and featured athletic competitions, musical contests, and sacrifices. The festival was central to Athenian identity and civic pride. The Eleusinian Mysteries. The Eleusinian Mysteries were secret religious rites held in honor of Demeter and Persephone at Eleusis. The mysteries were open to initiates from all over Greece and centered on the myth of Persephone's abduction by Hades. The rites were believed to offer initiates the hope of a better life after death and were among the most important religious events in ancient Greece. Sacrifices and prayers. Regular sacrifices to the gods were an essential part of religious practice. These could involve offerings of animals, food, or drink, and were typically performed at temples dedicated to specific deities. Prayers and hymns were also recited to invoke divine favor and protection. Oracles and prophecies, e.g., Delphi. Oracles were a vital part of Greek religion, with individuals and city-states seeking divine guidance through prophetic messages. The most famous oracle was the Oracle of Delphi, dedicated to the god Apollo. Delphi was considered the center of the world in Greek mythology, and people from all over Greece traveled to consult the priestess of Apollo, known as the Pythia. The Pythia would enter a trance-like state and deliver prophecies that were often ambiguous and subject to interpretation. These prophecies were highly influential in political and military decisions, and consulting the oracle was seen as a way to ensure divine approval for important actions. Other oracles, such as those at Dodona and Delos, were also consulted by the Greeks, but Delphi was the most prestigious and widely known. The role of religion in daily life and political affairs. Religion played an essential role in both the public and private lives of the Greeks. In daily life, religious observances and rituals were practiced in homes, temples, and public spaces. Private households had altars to their gods, and families often made offerings to protect their homes and ensure good fortune. Politically, religion and politics were closely intertwined. The state sponsored public rituals and festivals, which were seen as vital for maintaining the city-state's well-being. Political leaders, such as generals and kings, often consulted oracles before making critical decisions, particularly during wartime. Religious leaders, such as priests and priestesses, held significant influence in Greek society and sometimes even played roles in governance. The priesthood was often hereditary, and those in religious office could wield considerable social power. Moreover, the Greek understanding of fate and the will of the gods played a central role in political decision-making. The concept of hubris, excessive pride or arrogance before the gods, was seen as dangerous, and many political leaders sought to avoid provoking the gods through their actions. The Greeks believed that a leader's success was often determined by the gods' favor, which was earned through piety and respect for divine will. Philosophy and intellectual life in ancient Greece. Introduction to major Greek philosophers: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Ancient Greece is often regarded as the birthplace of Western philosophy, a tradition that continues to shape thought and culture to this day. The Greeks developed a unique intellectual environment that valued rational inquiry, questioning, and debate. Among the philosophers who had a profound influence on the development of philosophical thought were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, three of the most famous and influential figures in the history of philosophy. Socrates, 469 to 399 BCE. Socrates is widely considered the father of Western philosophy. However, he left no written works, and most of what we know about him comes from the writings of his student, Plato, as well as the historian Xenophon. Socrates is famous for his method of questioning, known as the Socratic method, which involved asking probing questions to stimulate critical thinking and expose contradictions in the thoughts of others. His focus was on ethics and the quest for virtue, and he sought to define concepts such as justice, piety, and wisdom through dialectical reasoning. Socrates' approach to philosophy was revolutionary because it emphasized reason and dialogue over the reliance on mythological or religious explanations of the world. Socrates was also famous for challenging the status quo in Athens, often questioning the authority of established figures, including politicians, poets, and craftsmen. His critiques of traditional Athenian society and his refusal to stop questioning led to his trial and execution by drinking hemlock, a fate that further solidified his role as a martyr for free thought. Plato, c. 428 to 348 BCE. Plato, Socrates' most famous student, is perhaps the most important philosopher in Western history. Plato founded the Academy in Athens, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. Plato's works, written in the form of dialogues, continue to be studied by philosophers, scholars, and students worldwide. Plato's philosophy emphasized the existence of an ideal world of forms or ideas, eternal, unchanging, perfect entities that exist beyond the material world. In his work The Republic, Plato explored the nature of justice, the ideal state, and the role of the philosopher king in ruling society. Plato's theory of the allegory of the cave is one of his most famous contributions, illustrating the difference between the world of appearances and the world of reality. Plato was deeply concerned with the nature of knowledge, justice, and virtue, and his works laid the groundwork for much of Western thought on metaphysics, ethics, and political philosophy. He also strongly believed in the importance of education, and his establishment of the academy was a major contribution to intellectual life. Aristotle, 384 to 322 BCE. Aristotle, Plato's student at the academy, took a different approach to philosophy, emphasizing empirical observation and logic. He is often regarded as the first true scientist in Western history due to his extensive work in a wide range of fields, including biology, physics, ethics, and politics. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics focused on the concept of virtue and the golden mean, advocating for moderation and balance in life. Aristotle also wrote extensively on politics, developing the concept of the best regime, where he compared different forms of government, such as monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. In his work Politics, Aristotle argued that the ideal political community is one in which citizens can achieve their highest potential. He is also known for his logic, particularly the development of syllogistic reasoning, which laid the foundation for deductive reasoning and formal logic. Aristotle's intellectual system, known as Aristotelianism, dominated Western thought for centuries, especially during the medieval period, and his contributions to logic, ethics, and science remain influential today. The origins of Western philosophy and its lasting impact. The origins of Western philosophy can be traced back to the pre-Socratic philosophers of the 6th century BCE. These early thinkers, such as Thales, Heraclitus, and Pythagoras, sought to understand the natural world through reason and observation rather than through mythological explanations. Thales, for instance, believed that water was the fundamental substance of the universe, while Heraclitus focused on the concept of change and the unity of opposites. This shift from myth to reason, and from theology to philosophy, marked the birth of intellectual inquiry that would shape the course of Western civilization. The pre-Socratics laid the groundwork for later thinkers by asking questions about the nature of existence, the cosmos, and the forces that govern the world. The influence of Greek philosophy can still be felt today. The works of Plato and Aristotle formed the backbone of medieval Christian philosophy, and their ideas have shaped fields such as political theory, ethics, metaphysics, and logic. The Renaissance saw a revival of interest in Greek philosophy, and its principles were incorporated into the foundations of modern science and humanism. Greek philosophers were also instrumental in the development of critical thinking, skepticism, and rationalism, all of which remain central to the intellectual culture of the West. The development of different schools of thought. In addition to the ideas of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, ancient Greece was home to several important philosophical schools, each with its own view of ethics, the nature of reality, and the best way to live. Stoicism, the Stoic school of philosophy, founded by Zeno of Citium in the early 3rd century BCE, emphasized virtue, self-control, and rationality. Stoics believed that the path to happiness lay in accepting the natural order of the world and living in harmony with it. They taught that emotions and desires should be controlled, and that people should focus on developing their moral character. Stoicism had a significant influence on Roman thought, with figures such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius continuing to promote Stoic ideas. Epicureanism, founded by Epicurus in the 4th century BCE, Epicureanism posited that the ultimate goal of life was to achieve pleasure, understood as the absence of pain, and avoid suffering. However, Epicureans did not advocate for indulgence in physical pleasures, rather, they believed that true happiness was found through simple living, the cultivation of friendship, and the pursuit of intellectual pleasures. Epicureanism was influential in later Western thought, particularly in the development of hedonistic philosophies. Cynicism, the Cynics, represented most famously by Diogenes of Sinope, rejected society's conventions and materialism, advocating for a simple, ascetic lifestyle. The Cynics believed that virtue was better than wealth, fame, or pleasure, and they often sought to expose the hypocrisy of social institutions. Diogenes, known for his eccentric behavior, famously lived in a barrel and carried a lantern in broad daylight, claiming to be looking for an honest man. Pyrrhonism, the Pyrrhonists, founded by Pyrrho of Elis, advocated for skepticism, questioning the possibility of attaining certain knowledge. They argued that humans could never know the truth, and thus, the wise person would suspend judgment and live without dogma or preconceptions. This school of thought laid the foundation for later forms of skepticism and influenced both later Greek and Roman philosophers. These philosophical schools provided alternative ways of thinking about the world and our place within it. They offered competing views on ethics, happiness, and the nature of reality, each shaping the intellectual landscape of ancient Greece. Greek contributions to science, mathematics, and astronomy. In addition to their groundbreaking work in philosophy, the ancient Greeks made significant contributions to the fields of science, mathematics, and astronomy. These contributions laid the foundation for much of modern scientific thought. Mathematics. The Greeks made crucial advances in mathematics, building on the work of earlier civilizations such as the Egyptians and Babylonians. Pythagoras, famous for the Pythagorean theorem, believed that numbers were the key to understanding the universe and developed a system based on numerical relationships. Euclid is known for his work in geometry, particularly his Elements, which became the standard textbook for mathematics in the Western world for over 2,000 years. Archimedes, one of the greatest mathematicians and engineers, developed principles of leverage, buoyancy, and the concept of the mathematical constant pi. Astronomy. Greek astronomers also made remarkable contributions to the understanding of the cosmos. Aristarchus of Samos proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system, suggesting that the Earth revolved around the Sun, an idea that would not be widely accepted until the work of Copernicus in the 16th century. Hipparchus, known for his work on star cataloging, is often considered the father of observational astronomy. He developed a system for predicting the positions of the stars and planets and made significant advances in understanding the Earth's axial tilt and the precession of the equinoxes. Medicine. Greek thinkers such as Hippocrates, often called the father of modern medicine, sought to explain disease and health through natural causes rather than through divine or supernatural explanations. Hippocrates' contributions to clinical medicine and his ethical standards for doctors, as seen in the Hippocratic Oath, laid the foundation for the medical profession. The intersection of philosophy and politics in ancient Greece. Philosophy and politics were deeply intertwined in ancient Greece, particularly in the works of philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle. Both philosophers were concerned with the nature of the ideal state and the role of philosophy in governance. Plato. In the Republic, Plato envisioned an ideal society ruled by philosopher kings, individuals who were trained in philosophy and ruled based on reason and wisdom rather than personal ambition or power. Plato believed that only those who had achieved a deep understanding of the forms, particularly the form of the good, could make just decisions for the society. His critique of democracy, particularly Athenian democracy, was rooted in his belief that most people were incapable of rational self-governance. Aristotle, in his Politics, explored various forms of government, including monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. Unlike Plato, Aristotle was more empirical, focusing on how political systems actually worked rather than theorizing about ideal states. He argued that the best form of government was a mixed system that combined elements of democracy and aristocracy, balancing the needs of the wealthy and the masses. For both philosophers, the role of philosophy was to guide the state toward justice, virtue, and the common good. Their ideas on politics, governance, and ethics continue to influence political thought today.